What's up, ADOS and our allies? You know who it is, Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for Democratic down ballot strategy. And today, family, we're talking about that Latinx vote, their demand for reparations, and how that impacts the ADOS and our ability to weaponize the vote. I have shared with you guys. What's up, Jeremiah Aaron Thompson? Thank you so much for joining the live. And for all of you watching, thank you for joining the live. Yes, I have been screaming for a couple of years now about the importance of developing a new strategy in order to weaponize our vote. Hi, Raymond Gann. Thank you for joining the live. Yeah, in order to weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering. That is what I have been on. I have been stressing it. You can go back into the archives and see me insisting on us doing something other than this lesser of two evil, two-step shuffle to our own peril. I've been sharing with you guys that the Hispanics already, the Latinx community already outnumber us by the millions. I've been sharing with you guys about how they don't believe in aborting their babies. I've been sharing with you guys about how immigration is being weaponized against the ADOS to deny us our justice claim. That until we pivot, we are in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors built with their lives. I have been stressing this every show to deliver a Republican top of the ticket and a Democratic Congress to protect the over 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. What's up, Robin Felix? Thank you for joining the live. Astrid, my love, one of my biggest donors. Shout out to you, Astrid, for that lovely donation to the Friends of ADOS TV show. I also want to thank Deborah Burrows, or Deborah Burrows, who also contributed big to this show. I've got one more person to thank for contributing largely to the show, and I am so grateful for all of you who donate to the Friends of ADOS TV so I can do this work. Debonair One, thank you for joining the live. Oh yeah, we're about to dig into this because thank you so much, Jeremiah. I see that beautiful compliment. I receive it and I return it a millionfold. Thank you. Yes, we have got to get into it because we are marching our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren when we continue this benign neglect, lesser of two evil, two-step shuffle to our own peril. We are in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming a permanent underclass while ADOS at large turned out in the biggest numbers they ever have in the history of turnouts to vote. To vote in racists with a combined 65 years in office and allow the corporate media, corporate with 3 Ks, to make Donald Trump more of a racist in office when he was only there for 4 years as compared to the racist that the collective has just decided to place in office over this country. And you don't think that's going to have consequences and repercussions when you believe that giving them the vote and then making demands, you don't believe that that's what we've been doing since FDR, and they don't see straight through that and are now more than ever not even remotely concerned about doing anything specific for our group. I don't know where the logic is in that. They've never had to do anything. And we were convinced that we needed to show up to these polls in record style Obama numbers to put them in office without weaponizing that vote so we can socialize this suffering. Well, you're in for some astonishing news and wake up call right now. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Juan Gonzalez from Democracy Now! Does an extraordinary job of showing all of us that Eva Longoria was absolutely correct. ADOS want to drag her for fierce in a pissing match over who put the author of the 94 crime bill, segregationist Jim Crow Joe, and Callie's top cop by her own admission, Skamala the Chameleon at the top of the ticket. We're getting into a pissing match with Eva Longoria when she suggests it was her people that got them elected over the ADOS. But we want to fight about putting them at the top of the ticket instead of just shutting up and going somewhere and settling down and coming up with a different strategy to impart upon our children and our grandchildren. We want to fight her when she was absolutely right. I'm going to take a couple of seconds I got to first read the Fair Use Copyright Act. Now, I think that Facebook is tripping. And every time it seems like I'm trying to share my screen, it actually starts to drag the battery. It drags, like it buffers or does something like that. So let me at least read that disclaimer so that I can try to share the screen with Juan Gonzalez and his beautifully laid out arguments that the Latino actually were the ones to deliver Biden Harris at the top of that ticket. And we were second to that effort. Wait for it. Just give me a second, family. Bear with me. Because like I said, too much going on. It starts to buffer. And I'm trying not to do that, but I do want to be able to share the screen and show you, because I can show you better than I can tell you. Fair use. Hold on. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Okay, so fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. So I'm sharing with you this video, and I think that's a disclaimer. I'll figure it out, but I need you to know that this is for educational purposes and to show you what really happened this election cycle. You guys file on in and feel free to comment. I don't have anything to read you this evening. So I am in fact going to use this time to dig into this topic and then review your comments. And if I feel, compelled, I'll dig into a couple of other things that I've shared on Facebook. Okay. So just give me a second to bring up that video. Oh, prayerfully it'll act right this time. Lord of mercy. Okay, let me find it. How y'all doing tonight? Good evening on the West Coast, in the Central, and good evening on the East Coast. I thank you all for joining the live as I search for this video. Okay, family, just give me a second. Okay.
general ballpark of previous presidents.
Okay, let me share my screen, family. Thank you, Frida, for joining the live. If I haven't called your name, it's because I can't see it. Stand by.
Appeal to Latino voters. The LA Times, Latino voters tired of being taken for granted by baffled Democrats. CNN and others claiming there's no such thing as a Latino bloc. And even
number of votes cast by white Americans barely increased from the last presidential election. Well, Juan, your analysis has been absolutely critical. That's right. Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez has been closely looking at how the historic turnout in the Latinx community has impacted the race. Lay it out for us.
Well, Amy, the cascade of stories continues, claiming a surprising turn by Latino voters toward Donald Trump. The New York Times this week, front page, quote, how Democrats missed Trump's appeal to Latino voters. The LA Times, Latino voters tired of being taken for granted by baffled Democrats. CNN and others claiming there's no such thing as a Latino bloc. And even The Intercept saying in one of their stories, that non-white voters are not immune to right-wing populism. Well, I said last week, and I will repeat it again, the key narrative of this election is not whether there was a small shift in the percentage of Latinx voters in some areas of the country turning toward Trump. The main story is that in an election which saw a historic turnout, people of color, and especially Latinos, had an unprecedented increase in voting. And they, not white voters, represent the bulk of that increase. Virtually none of the reports mention this, that for the first time in U.S. history, Latinos turnout appears to have reached comparable levels to the rates for white and Black Americans. 20.6 million Latinos went to the polls in this election. That's 64% of the 32 million eligible Latinx voters. While in previous election cycles, the turnout had been routinely below 50%. In raw numbers, 8 million more Latinos voted this year than in 2016. That's a 63% increase over the last presidential elections. Now, I've updated and tweaked the chart from last week, and it shows that the biggest increase in both percentages and actual votes from 4 years ago came from Latino voters. Their jump in number of ballots cast nearly equaled that the increase among white and Black voters combined. The next biggest jump in percentage term came among African-American voters, who increased by 20%, Asian Americans by 16%, while white voters increased by just under 6%. Now, some of these numbers, I should note, are different from what I displayed last week, in part because there's been some little noticed changes to the Edison National Exit Poll in the past few days compared to what was released on Election Day by all the networks. For instance, the original version estimated that whites were 65% of the electorate, while the latest figures say that they were 67%. And the poll also increases turnout for African Americans and Asians. Well, the Edison poll has always been flawed, and numerous analyses have shown its past samples were skewed to oversampling Cuban Americans, undersampling both Black and Latino inner city polling sites, and also undersampling voters whose primary language is not English, all of which means it tends to undercount Latino voters for Democrats. But the basic contours of the sampling remains the same, and it's inescapable. After decades of political experts talking about the growing Latino vote, this year it actually happened. Hispanic voters felt compelled like never before to go to the polls because COVID-19 felled them more than other groups, because of the constant demonization of Latinos by the president, because of the barbaric family family separation policies, or because of the threats to healthcare, even for some conservative Latinos, because of their hope of finally turning back Roe v. Wade. One thing is sure, neither the Democratic nor Republican parties will underestimate or ignore Latino voters from now on. This should be cause for widespread celebration as a long-awaited democratization of vote. But what about the claim that Trump made major unexpected inroads among Latino voters nationwide, as reflected by the 66 to 32% split of the Latino vote between Biden and Trump? Some say that Latinos could be deserting the Democratic Party. Those of us who've been around the block a few times have heard this narrative before. In reality, these results are in the ballpark of previous presidential campaigns. I want to put up, hopefully, a chart here of how Latinos split their vote over the last 30 years in presidential elections. The Republican share of voters has varied from a low of 27% when Mitt Romney ran against Barack Obama in 2012 to a high of 44% that George Bush got in his second presidential run in 2004. Even John McCain, when he ran against Obama in 2008, got a similar percentage of the Latino vote as Trump did this year. And the high point, the Bush victory in 2004, we should note, is the last time a Republican candidate got a majority of the popular vote. But the big difference now is that the Latinx vote is so much larger. When you get 2/3 of a vote that has tripled in size in just a few years, you begin to achieve critical mass. No wonder Lindsey Graham is saying that if these elections aren't changed somehow, Republicans will never win the White House again. What about those places like the Rio Grande Valley of Texas and South Florida, where Trump made real inroads in largely Latino districts in the actual vote? But what about those pundits who claim Latinos are so diverse and diffuse as a population that it is erroneous to consider them a single community? First, on South Africa and the Rio Grande Valley, yes, actual vote results show that Trump had significant increases in his support there. Florida is not surprising, given the influx of conservative refugees from Nicaragua and Venezuela in recent years, but the Rio Grande Valley is. In Hidalgo County, along the border, which is 90% Latino, Trump went from 27% against Hillary Clinton to 40% against Joe Biden. In Maverick County, which is 95% Latino, he went 20% against Clinton to 45% against Biden. Those are significant numbers. The Valley, however, has changed rapidly during the Trump era. Always a socially conservative rural area, it has seen enormous job growth in recent years as a result of the militarization of the border, which brought thousands of new jobs to the area, border patrol officers, for workers on private construction of the wall with Mexico, for immigration detention centers. In addition, the Valley has replaced the San Diego sector as the epicenter of undocumented migrant crossings and the failed immigration system of the United States. All of that, no doubt, helped turn its residents for Trump. But in the big cities of Texas, where most Latinos live, there's another story. San Antonio's Bexar County, for example, 60% Latino saw Biden's margin of votes climb from 54 to 40 to 58%, though we'll need better figures on how much of that was in the Latino community. It seems clear, however, that Latino turnout in states like Nevada, Arizona, and Pennsylvania helped Biden win those key battleground states. And then there's California and New York. The Latino share of the vote that went to Biden appears to be breathtaking in those states. 77% in California, 72% in New York. Now, some argue that those are reliable blue states anyway, so those Hispanic voters are not really critical. Really? Aren't those enormous Latino margins year after year what has made those states reliably blue? And the same for New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and lately Colorado. Then there are these nonsensical questions as to whether a Latino community actually exists. Let's be clear. Latinx identity in the United States is a social construct created both by the dominant society that needed to define and categorize an other, and by the marginalized group itself organically from the ground by disparate Latin American migrant groups who were forced to unite in order to survive in a hostile society and whose children gradually intermarried to create a new social construct, the Latino in America. More than 20 years ago, I said in my book, Harvest of Empire, that Latinos were becoming a new third force in American politics. They largely vote Democratic, but a significant portion is susceptible to Republican candidates if those political leaders address even a few of their concerns. Since then, Latin Americans from educated and middle-class backgrounds have migrated to this country in growing numbers, and a good portion have adopted typical American conservative views. Some of that community, though still a minority, have been drawn to right-wing populism, to national chauvinism, and even to racist views. All of this fixation on Latinos, however, ignores the fundamental question of this election, which very few political observers I've seen have dared to tackle. Why the heck did 58% of white Americans vote for Donald Trump, including 55% of white women? With the United States consolidating itself as the world's most powerful imperialist nation and the economic gap in the country widening, right-wing movements have only grown at home, and the defeat of Trump will not halt their growth. The key to building a progressive majority is to keep mobilizing more young Latinos to vote, burying the small percentage increases in support for right-wing candidates under an avalanche from people of color, organized labor, and their allies. And that's my take on this election.
Well, Juan Gonzalez.
Blind Focus, thank you for joining the live. Brian Johnson, thank you for joining the live. And Direct the Hitman, thank you for so much for joining the live. And for those of you who have yet to type in the chat, I want to thank you so much for joining the live. Family, we've been sold a bill of goods by corporate with 3Ks, news media, and by ADOS, the lineage, mostly the boomer class, trying to convince me that the immigrant vote posed no threat to the ADOS, that they simply do not show up in the same numbers as we do, as if we could continue to afford to do this lesser of two evil voting to our own peril, to at least third-class status in the country our ancestors built with their lives. I've been dragged, I've been told I am sounding like a victim for demanding reparations along with the ADOS movement. I've been called a Russian bot. I've been called a Trump supporter. Strategies be damned. We have taken the heat for what we have been telling you was coming for the last couple of years, that our vote is being replaced. We have been stressing, at least I have, as have my comrades, a Democratic down ballot strategy. This is nothing new. I've shared in prior shows about Dr. Charles Morris and his calls to do the same when Teddy Roosevelt dishonorably discharged 167 of our Buffalo soldiers who were wrongfully accused of killing a second white man after being quarantined to their barracks for killing the first. He said to deliver a Democratic top a ticket at a time when he was trying to weaponize the Republican Congress to protect the Black South. We're not offering a strategy unakin to what he offered back in early 20s? We have been voting blue no matter who since FDR. And I'm not understanding how this was a huge success. I'm going to some of my notes. And yet Biden said, before we understood the numbers, as eloquently stated by Juan Gonzalez, Biden said he wasn't counting on their vote. Yet, if you go to his site, the platform platform was catering to the Latino vote. He and the conservatives were in a fight for that vote. We were told by Kamala before she even got running good that she wasn't doing anything specifically for our group. Biden doubled down and said nothing would fundamentally change. And I'm doing a show on Sunday with the brothers from Be the Power. Hopefully Ali Bay can make it, but Josh and Logic and Naheem have all confirmed that they will be over here for that fire show where we're going to talk about the cabinet that Biden is putting in place that has the makeup of nothing fundamentally changing for the ADOS. This is nothing but Obama 2.0. I mean, to even consider Rahm Emanuel as a part of your administration, I think he was being considered for National Treasury Secretary. This is the same man who hid the footage on the execution of Laquan McDonald and closed down the schools in the inner city and sits up wondering why so many Black youth are just running wild and committing all manner of crimes and murdering each other. So for Joe Biden to even consider Rahm Emanuel lets you know that he doesn't intend to do anything specifically for the ADOS. That shouldn't even be a bleep on his radar if he sincerely had our back, if he sincerely cared about the ADOS. And yet we want to get into a pissing match with the very immigrants that we're being replaced by. Biden has earmarked to allow 11 to 22 million more immigrants a pathway to citizenship, while they tell you they're not doing anything specifically for our group. And there is an over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap. And you guys, not the movement, not my woke boomers, my woke Gen Xers, my woke millennials, my woke Gen Zs. I'm talking about the sheeple that continue to push this narrative and to guilt the ADOS movement, try to paint us out to be victims for demanding reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. We get guilted, called Russian bots by our own people. You allow Don Lemon to call us this on the corporate with 3Ks news media. You allow that narrative. You don't come to the defense of the ADOS movement. You don't get into the fight for the ADOS movement or with the ADOS movement. You drag us and COINTELPRO us like our white and Black immigrant oppressors. And then you've got a CBC and you've got Congress people that look like us that's caping for the Latins. Why? So they can keep their jobs. Because we aren't doing what the Latinx community is doing. They are teaching their young how to do politics. They are making demands in exchange for their vote. They got a lot more promises from Biden on his platform than they did Trump, who disparages them. And as a result, they are very upset and could not sway this election because we've been lied to. The Latinx community do in large part vote Democrat, not Republican like we've been told. We have been sold a bill of goods by the seemingly politically educated that this was not posing a threat to the ADOS vote, that we were still the ones that were needed to decide elections. They're 42 million to our what, 37 million. Add 22 on top of that and see what you get. As the government continues to put the abortion clinics in our communities, which is something they're against. They're having babies as early as 14. Not that I want that for us, because we don't have that type of collectivity amongst us to take care of our children. Plus, I don't believe children should be having children. But I do see this agenda. I don't see them putting gay and lesbian Hispanics in the movies, in the commercials, all over the place. We are less than 1% of that populace, but we are the face of all of the debauchery, not the gayest debauchery, but I'm here to tell you there is an agenda being weaponized against the ADOS to continue to abort our babies and for our men to turn to each other for love and affection. So that stops our ability to procreate. We've got 1 million Black men in prison. And you guys, not the movement, not the woke ones, continue to run to the polls to vote this nonsense at the top of the ticket. I shared in the show with Arthur Ward, they are bringing gender-neutral bathrooms to my daughter's high school. Now, I'm liberal in that you can screw who you want in your bed. But I'm very conservative when it comes to what my daughter is exposed to. Why in the world is there more gay PDA than there is hetero PDA on her campus? And she's got to be exposed to this. And now you're bringing bathrooms. There's an agenda out here and at large, which is why Obama was the one to be the gay president. He was the one to do that. Making them a priority. Why? Because they, by and large, have money. Many of the Black men that are in gay relationships are in them with white men. And this agenda is being forced on our children through the music and through the media as another form of eugenist while we abort our children. They put that in our communities. Lock up our strongest men. Yeah, the ones that were fighting like the ADOS are on lockdown. Still, when Obama was freeing prisoners, he didn't free our political prisoners. Assata Shakur still can't come home without the threat of probably being executed. And we didn't learn anything from the last election cycle. 85% of our electorate showed up. 20%, 17.6 last election cycle, 20% this election cycle. Show up to vote for this ticket at the top when they told you out their own mouth they aren't doing anything specific for our group and we are tethered to the bottom. In the country our ancestors built with their lives. So if they take that position, what do you think is going to happen when they flood the government with all these immigrants? Yeah. The Latino vote is relied upon heavily by the conservatives as the Black vote is relied heavily upon by the Democrats. While we're sold a bill of goods, the Latinx community is showing up in numbers and teaching their children how to show up in droves to the Democratic Party because that is where they're being offered everything. Out here, the Democrats run this, and you got Latinx in all manner of office. When we're on the phone and on the Zoom fighting for the AB 3121 commission so that those reparations turn out right, we're speaking to the Latin and the Asian are in those positions to make those decisions. They are the gatekeepers between us and the senators who get those picks. When you look at Skid Row out here, you don't see the Hispanics on Skid Row to the degree that you see the ADOS on Skid Row, homeless, sleeping in their cars under bridges. And yet our electorate turns up to vote Biden Harris at the top of the ticket, who said they're not doing anything specifically for you. When they say that, they mean that. And so now you've got the Latinos demanding reparations. I'm going to read that shortly after I finish my comments on Juan Gonzalez's video that he just shared. Because if the Democrats don't give them the reparations, they're going to weaponize their vote to get it from the conservatives. So this can swing their direction. And I promise you they're going to get it. Because they will in turn be around what? 42 and 22 is 64. 64 million to the ADOS is shrinking. We were once 40 million. Now we're about 35 million. They will be 64 million after Biden do as he has promised and open up these borders to up to 22 million more immigrants. And nobody's on our side. We don't have any friends. When we were the reparations for all of them, it was our ancestors' heinous chattel slavery that paved the way for them to come over here after the 65 Immigration Act. Juan Gonzalez spoke on Latino being a social construct, as was Black and African American, to tether us, however, to the bottom as the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Whereas the Latinx community has less education than ADOS down here, and their salaries may be $1,000 shy of ours. And bump what you heard. The people that are coming over here, that are now in a position to hire ADOS and demand that we know Spanish in the country our ancestors built with their lives, they're the ones that are educated. It's not just the orange pickers or the construction workers that we're in competition with. I've already shared with you guys on previous shows that Wells Fargo Bank replaced predominantly all of ADOS with immigrants, largely Hispanic and Asian. It took the life of two of my friends, my colleagues. There went my $120K a year position that I worked hard to build from the ground. They're now in a position to tell us yes or no, and they just voted down Prop 16, which was to overturn Prop 209. Ward Connolly, ADOS, undermined and did us in, just stuck the shiv in us and turned it in 96. And it dropped our UC participation down to maybe 1% out here in the state of California. The ADOS worked with Dr. Weber to turn that over, and the Asian, Latino, and the Black immigrants, along with the whites, were predominantly a no. We have gone from 16 to 6%. We are 44% of the degreed and only 6% of the private sector with no social capital in most companies. Can't get work. Got a mound of student loan debt, but can't get hired because they're running it. And as goes California, so goes the nation. So it is my desire and that of all of the new Black media to educate our youth and to reach them, to educate them about a Democratic down ballot strategy until they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. They're not going to survive it on just an income, especially since being ADOS no longer matters. Immigration is being weaponized against us to replace us. And too many of the ADOS, the lineage at large, want you to continue with this lesser two evil two-step shuffle to our own peril when we are in the fight of our lives. And the walls are closing in on that. Watch and see who gets reparations before the ADOS. Let me get to that article. I'm at 6:42. I'm trying to get y'all out at a decent hour. I won't be doing a Thursday show. It's Thanksgiving. I will be here on Sunday with those kings from Be the Power, at least Josh and Naheem and Logic. Ali is going to see if he is in studio or not. Hopefully he can make it too. I just love those brothers, and I'm so grateful that they're going to help me unpack the nothing burger that we're also going to get within the confines of a Biden administration. Brace yourself for more war, more trade deals. It's really time to get with poor white folks and get our country back. I know nobody wants to hear that, but we can't do this on our own. I'm going to tell you that right now. It ain't going down. And the only way to do that is to teach them why the reparations is necessary. Class-based policies don't fix race. Only 12% of us are degreed. 35% of them are degreed, white folks. That's another white wealth transfer when you erase student loan debt and don't do so specifically for the ADOS. So let me dig into this article, and I will be doing my commentary in between. UCLA School of Law professor Laura Gomez advocates for reparations for Latinos. This is November 16, 2020. She's written a book titled Inventing Latinos, A New Story of American Racism. And in it, she advocates for the U.S. to provide reparations for the Latino community. The main theme of her book, as described from an excerpt from the introduction, says, Inventing Latinos interrogates the how and why of Latinx identity becoming a distinctive racial identity. To say Latinos have different choices individually and collectively is to underline how race reflects two vectors crossing. On the one hand, one can assert and so essentially choose a racial identity. But on the other, racial identities are given to us by others. Is this not true of the ADOS? Didn't Jesse Jackson give us African American? I don't know who gave us black, but there's a flattening that is happening. When 90% of us descend from chattel slavery, but the flattening is needed to keep the country and the world in the dark about how poorly ADOS is really doing. So the government can mask how much they've stolen from us. For example, Barack Obama is African American, Kenyan father, white mother. White mother descends from slave owners. So do you see how flattening ADOS with the ilk of a Barack Obama who received upward of $1 million when his white grandmother passed away, a Harvard Ivy League education, raised by his white grandparents, and his white mother and an Indian man whom she married? Do you see how that can be a problem? And then when he comes out with all of this respectability politics to shame black men especially, then white folks don't understand why we are up in a bunch and demanding reparations because of that decadent veil that masks the failure of the American descendant of chattel slavery. Until George Floyd, 8 minutes, 46 seconds to the neck as he cried for his mother and urinated himself. That was the only time things really shifted, as the race soldiers continue to execute us with impunity. Back to the text. But to accurately describe racial identity as situational does not fully capture the social dynamic at the heart of this book, which has as much to do with how racial conventions and racism make some people's race less malleable than others. This book explains how and why Latinos became cognizable and a racial group that is other and inferior to whites, yet they identify as white. You see, they get to play both sides because of their fair skin. You can't slip in and out of ADOSness as easily. They are weaponizing both sides for the come up, and it's working. During a recent interview with UCLA, Gomez was asked several questions about her book. She stated that she wants to clear up some misconceptions about Latinos. For example, she said that many Americans assume Latinos are recent immigrants, despite the fact that 7 out of 10 Latinos are Mexican Americans, and 80% of them were born in the U.S. Anchor babies. In her book, she wrote, to put it bluntly, race isn't real, but racism is. We've known this since before 1619, when we were owned by the Spaniards in this country. Quote, there's a conservative legal critique of this notion of race as socially constructed. The critique goes like this: if race is just made up and race is not real, then we don't need to worry about compensating people for racial injuries. Not the ADOS racial injuries. She's fighting for the Latinx racial injuries. We don't need to worry about diversity in institutions because this race thing is not real. My response is, well, even though race is socially constructed and in a sense invented racism, the effective of that invention is very powerful. Don't we know it? In response to another one of the questions, Gomez advocates for reparations for Latinos. She said, let me stop and take a breath before I say what she said. And we literally can't get 100% of our electorate to be in support of the reparations, to weaponize the vote and socialize this suffering until they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. But she is getting the support of the Latinx community for their reparations, and now their vote matters, at least comparable to ours. By the next election cycle, it'll be a wrap once they allow 22 million more in this country. This is how all the other groups are getting the bag and getting their demands met. All other groups came up for the Democrats, while the ADOS is told, we're not doing anything specifically for your group, because we've proven that we'll give you the top of the ticket without you having to do anything for us. Thankfully, quote, we're talking a lot more about reparations to African Americans. I think that's a long overdue conversation. How do we repair the damage that racism has done? Because of the way that American military, kudos to her for at least admitting that much, I don't really see them on the front lines with us for that. I don't really see them fighting with us for that. I mean, I remember fighting for the 1866 on the steps of the Supreme Court the day before DACA was over there, as was the NAACP fighting for DACA. But the next day, not even the NAACP was on the steps fighting with the ADOS movement. And when we inquired as to why not, they asked, why weren't we on the steps fighting for DACA? So they'll say it in places like this, but they won't show up in any place nationally and fight for our reparations, but they'll do it for their reparations. Because the way that American military, government, and corporations infiltrated Central America and destroyed the indigenous way of life and slaughtered so many people, people in Central America should get asylum here. like we had asylum for the Vietnamese, for Cubans. We must allow those folks in. So, the Democrats and the Republicans create the problem and now want to be the solution by opening up these borders and oppressing the ADOS more because of their decisions to start these wars all over the globe, to steal assets and resources, to buy off elections as they cry Russia, Russiagate. They're the very ones they accuse Russia of being, and we run to the polls to vote this into office at the top of the ticket instead of letting it burn to the ground. Gomez added that another way to provide reparations would be to provide amnesty to illegal immigrants living in the United States. She said, another is amnesty, a pathway to citizenship for undocumented persons who are here, have not committed violent crimes, and can prove that they've been here for a certain amount of time. Again, we're looking at a different story of anti-Latino racism. And so what does that suggest in terms of what we might do as a society to make amends, repair the relationship, and bring people into the fold as full-fledged Americans before making you, ADOS, American? They're making us eat the cost of the heinous chattel slave labor our ancestors endured. Our biggest fight is our own people. I can't even get to the white supremacist without having to get these black white supremacists together. I can't even get to them because I got to get to us first. And that is evident by the numbers of us that showed up to the polls to vote this at the top of the ticket instead of doing as the ADOS movement had advised and burning it down and shutting it down by delivering a Republican top in a Democratic Congress. As with any publication written in the higher education world, other professors from around the country have commented on the book. Brigham Young University professor James David Gonzalez wrote, Gomez also reveals the nefarious roles the U.S. has played in Latin America, from military interventions and economic exploitation to political interference that, taken together, have destabilized national economies to send migrants northward over the course of more than a century. This has been going on for us since about the 1400s. While the Democrats and the Republicans fight for this vote, who do you think is going to be delivered? Because they know how to weaponize their vote to get their demands met. While the ADOS movement is dragged for making demands, dragged for demanding reparations to close the over 100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap, while 90% of us share less than 700 billion since COVID. We're dragged for that by our very own people who are constantly asking me, why don't I drag Trump? Why should I drag a Republican that don't count on my vote? My vote can only be weaponized against the Democrats. You don't make sense to think that I got to be on Trump because he's a mean racist, as if he's the first one to come to office. He didn't start 6 more wars. He didn't murder Gaddafi. He didn't drop so many bombs he ran out. He didn't drone the innocent and then turn around and get a Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't enter into a NAFTA agreement and send more jobs overseas. That was y'all's Jesus with Obama. Created 1 million white millionaires on his watch, while 43% of ADOS lost all the wealth they had, their homes. And if you don't die from COVID, wait for the economic disparity that's going to cripple the rest of us and wipe us completely off the monopoly board because ADOS didn't move as a block. He added, it's no coincidence that the vast majority of Latinos migrate from the places most impacted by this nation's dirty deeds, leading Gomez to a bold call for reparations. Lord Gomez puts racism, colonialism, white dominance, and community resistance exactly where they should be, at the heart of the conversations about Latinos today and the nature of race in the United States tomorrow. And we can't move as a block. We can't collectively be for our own repair to give some wealth to our children and grandchildren. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves that we build this. We are the legs of the table all these groups eat from. We are their reparations, and they are getting in position to get reparations over the ADOS. A UCLA student also commented to Campus Reform about the book, saying, I think it's definitely an interesting take on the subject, but I don't really think a lot of people usually think about reparations for Latinos because generally it focuses on the African American community. So this is a new perspective for me and probably a lot of other people too. The student added, I also think this book will probably give people a new idea about reparations and what that can look like if it were to ever happen. I guess reparations doesn't always just have to be giving money to communities, but it could be something that addresses a particular issue instead, like in this case, amnesty and asylum. Amnesty and asylum and a pathway to being American before ADOS is whole is cash, family. They own some of the best homes in the best communities out here. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Their median income is within a stone's throw of ours, and we're more educated. Because we're being called nigger in the legislation. While we sit up here and pretend and are in denial that we may have income, but we have no wealth. Which is why we're being executed by government sanction. Which is why we're the ones dying disproportionately from COVID. Which is why we have the most disproportionate, over 50% of ADOS families are homeless in this country that our ancestors built with their lives. And I gotta fight ADOS to weaponize the vote and socialize the suffering. Harder than fish grease, family. Forgive me. I'm trying to calm down. If we don't become politically educated, it's going to be to our peril and that of our children. What are we going to leave them if they got $100,000 worth of student loan debt and can't get hired? Because they're in control and looking out for their own, which is what they're doing out here. During the interview, Gomez was last asked who she hoped would read the book. She responded by saying, there are two main audiences that I had in mind. One is Latinos themselves because there's such a hunger for just more information and knowledge. Who are we? Where do we come from? How did things get this way? And it's not only from college students, it's people of all ages. I saw with my last book, Manifest Destiny, that there's a real hunger. She added, the other audience is people who don't really have any knowledge about Latinos or a very cursory understanding. This happens to include a lot of people in the media, in particular the East Coast and Midwest. And sometimes we don't do a very good job in California either in terms of our homework on these things. But in particular, in the East Coast, I think where it's very much a black-white kind of framing, I would really like this book to reach those folks. More than half of American college students believe rioting and looting is justified. Reparations required. This is in Philly. Okay, I'm not going to read that. I'm going to get to your comments. Family, we are in trouble. This is not good for us. Let me see what you have to say. Raymond Gant, welcome to the live, my love. I don't know if I said hello. I'm just reading the significant comments so I can pray you out. I'll get to some of the other things on my mind when I have the brothers on my show. Jeremiah says, a distinction without difference. Biden, Trump. Has Kamala hired any AKAs yet, Robin Felix? Yeah, I see both her and Biden hiring lots of immigrants and corporatists. We'll dig into that on Sunday's show. Frida, thank you for joining the live. Blind Focus. Oh, I think I said hello to you guys. Nick Bazell, thank you for joining the live. Biden Cabinet, hashtag CCCC. Could you unpack that for the family? Nick, I would love to see that spelled out. What's up, Shannon McFall from the Black Watch? Thank you for joining the live. Jeremiah, Biden and Harris isn't even hiding the fact that they intend to drown out ADOS Los Angeles. Unfortunately, I think they'll succeed out here in California. Our ADOS population is too small and fractured out here. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I'm looking to do something different myself as a result of what you just said, Jeremiah. Thank you, Nick. Your sister always speaks the truth. Oh, thank you, fam. I know, right? Always. Thank you, my loves, for the love. Sheila Jackson Lee, Nick says, is the child of immigrants. That's why she dragged her feet on HR 40. It has nothing to do with her. She's of Jamaican descent, both parents. Now, I don't know if she was born here or not, but it makes no sense that we've been here since the 1400s, slaving and toiling the land, while Kamala, within one generation, and raised predominantly in Canada, while weaponizing Ruby Bridges' story, okay, with our assistance, right? Well, I don't know. I think the Latin artist who put Kamala walking in a blue suit with Ruby Bridges in her shadow, as her shadow, was a Latinx person. I don't believe that was anyone Black. But Kamala doesn't mind weaponizing Blackness, associated with ADOS-ness for that vote. Neither she nor Biden could hold their own during their primaries. And yet we allowed corporate with 3Ks, news media, and the Democrats to convince us Trump was more dangerous, with Clyburn and Obama interfering in the election to force these two at the top of the ticket. They didn't win on their records. But folks want to pretend like the racist, mean Trump was more bigoted than the racist Biden and the racist Kamala. All of it's by design. And Sheila Jackson Lee, you're absolutely right, Nick. She sat on HR 40 until the ADOS movement breathed life into the reparations argument. After Kamala threw her hat in the ring, we've been on it for some time, but it really revved up once it became a national debate topic. And Jamie and Fowler, shout out to him, was running all over the country, thrusting a microphone into the faces of the candidates to pressure them for reparations for the ADOS. But I promise you this, They can pay lip service to who is being predominantly talked about, but they will not stand in the way if this country chooses to repair them over us. Let's hear if they're going to use the excuse about them being 42 million and why they can't repair them. Let's see if they use they keep that same energy with the Latinx community. Let's see if that happens. John Page is up in the house. Are you Jeremiah Aaron Thompson? Stop disguising yourself, sis star. She put a beautiful power fist with chains on it in the Facebook feed that is just sheer fire. I had to share it to my story, basically saying, we are not BIPOC, we are not POC. I would like to add to that, we ain't even black. It's too flat. We are American descendants of chattel slavery. We were drugged here. We didn't choose to be here. Very distinct difference. And thank you, Dawn. I've shared that everywhere I can, and it's been catching on like wildfire. Ralph Cobbs, welcome to the live, my love. Nick says, I stopped watching programs when they start pushing that gay black narrative. Absolutely. Wasn't that the one with Lee Daniels had the one with Power, or what was the name? I don't think it was called Power. It was with Taraji and who else? Terrence Howard. I can't think of the name of that. I got through maybe a half of the first season, and they start pushing all that nonsense. I tuned out. And the only way this changes is if we tune out. They won't show black on black hetero love in the same proportions that they do gay love. You have to be careful of these agendas to turn our children woman to woman, man to man, to stop the procreation of our race. I'm Black Love all the way live. I will never depart from it because I understand how we got to post-traumatic slave syndrome, why that's still very much inherent in the way we behave. We need lineage therapy. Empire, season 2, I stopped watching. Great for you. We all need to stop watching, and we need to write the networks that we will not become the face of this. You will not destroy our young black boys and girls by constantly pushing this gay and lesbian homosexual agenda on our children. And no, I'm not homophobic. I've got gay friends and gay family. So don't go run tell that lie, nor am I xenophobic. When I deal with immigrants and gays, I'm doing so in relationship to how it oppresses us and oppresses our numbers. Putting abortion clinics in our communities instead of education, instead of American jobs with American salaries, like the boomers had privilege too. The pensions they're now living on, which are no more for us. The business loans we're lacking in our communities as all these other groups who hate us as much as our white oppressors come into our communities and build business. You know, the ones we're being gentrified out of after they come up in there and execute us by government sanction, those cities that they want back. They don't give us home loans because they can't afford to take that risk. Why? We're a wealthless group and an incomeless group predominantly. So we don't even get home loans the way we once did when we had manufacturing jobs. Jeremiah says, Obama's scared of us. He'll avoid us every chance he gets. He knows we got that work for him. We'd expose his ass real quick. He's already being exposed. That doesn't stop him. He's got some toothless Brothers Keeper program I don't even know if there's any money in that program. If it is, it's probably akin to the money for Prop 16 lining the pockets of Asians and immigrants. We voted for $1.5 billion to build housing for the homeless. I want to say 5% or less of them have homes. How's that work? When we voted for an increase in taxes, where's that money going? It's not building the homes for the homeless. So he's got some brother's keeper where he's going in and talking to young black boys and men about how trifling they are when most of their fathers are locked up. How's the money being used to benefit these young people? How's it being used to open job centers and give them work? That's what they need. But Joe Biden promises to give $30 million more to the race soldiers to over-police our communities in lieu of education, in lieu of healthcare, in lieu of home ownership, in lieu of business ownership, in lieu of American jobs that pay an American wage. So we've been putting in that work. Obama knows this. But he continues in the puckery. Nick says Hollywood never wants to push black nuclear love. You're absolutely right. That's why I push it as much as I can. Gibson Eugene, thank you for joining the live. Travis Johnson, thank you for joining the live, my love. Ida B. Wells 2.0. You overstand. He named me that. I love it. Nick says Designated Survivor season 3 is disgusting. They had 2 black men sleeping together showing everything. One of the men had HIV. They love pushing that stuff. Oh my God. This is why I don't watch this crap. This is exactly why I don't put it on. I don't even watch major networks. This is crazy to me. Jeremiah says, take the security of Obama's crowd of sheeple that applauds anything he says, put him in a debate room with a knowledgeable ADOS advocate and no one to applaud him. He would probably start cursing up a storm in frustration. Oh, yeah. He don't want that smoke. Trump stood, Debonair One says, Trump stood between ADOS and a wave of foreigners. It's about to be on and popping. Debonair One, you are absolutely correct. That's why I wanted him at the top of the ticket. Now, you're talking already outnumbered by Hispanics alone. I think there's 70 million immigrants in this country. You add another 22, that's 92 million of others against 35 million and shrinking of ADOS. He was that buffer for us and whites. B1 fam, Mary Blackfire, thank you B1 for being on the line. Herb Saint, meat workers at Tyson have a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because management made bets on how many workers would catch COVID-19. Most of those workers are illegal immigrants. Okay, this is more of the ammunition they will use to get their reparations before us. Jeremiah says, I've cut off a lot of misinformed ADOS. I'm done trying to raise the dead. Absolutely, family. Well, we got to keep trying, Jeremiah. I'm hopeful that those that are on the fence will trickle in. I'm prayerful that you guys will share. Facebook is messing with me. They've shut down my ability to do watch parties, which is generally how I got a greater reach in terms of the numbers of this message. But without that ability, I need all hands on deck. Share. I can't give in. I can't give up. I can't give out. I've got a 16-year-old to leave this to. I need you guys, even if we convert, listen, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, family? I need all hands on deck. So Jeremiah, stay in there. Just continue to post the truth. I'll continue to preach the truth over here. This is why I continue this, and we'll be on this until 2022, 2024, until we turn the tide and weaponize the vote and socialize the suffering. This is my square. Herb Saint says, claiming racial discrimination, make it make sense. Oh, yeah, they can claim that because, like I said, the Republicans and the Democrats alike create the problems overseas and want to be the solution in this country because capitalism requires a bottom caste, and they decided long ago that was ADOS. And now they just allow the Latinos to identify as white. So they get repaired as a minority group and get benefits like our white oppressors. They're playing both sides to get all of it. And ADOS continue to fall for this nonsense, running to the polls to just give the election to Biden-Harris, who are the threat. Trump, in this instance, was the lesser of two evils, especially if we had delivered a Democratic Congress. I told y'all a trifecta of the Democrats was going to be to the detriment of the ADOS. It's coming. Shannon says we didn't put ourselves in this position, which means we can't get ourselves out. It's time for the government to cut the check, ADOS. Absolutely, he's right. All of what we're experiencing is by design of institutional systemic racism. There was an $11 trillion, what's the word I'm looking for? At the end of chattel slavery, there was 11 trillion that had been amassed that has now been grown to over 100 trillion in terms of household dollars alone. While they sit up here and say, where's the money going to come from? They didn't ask me that when they continue to send our money over to the Jews for their Holocaust and for their armies. Nobody asked me that for this incessant war, which we are going to remain in because it's profitable to the corporatists and the oligarchs. None of which Trump did, but he's been made the boogeyman. Because he's an overt racist to the covert racism of Biden-Harris. Prepare for more war, prepare for more jobs to be outsourced, because that's what capitalism requires. And so they're weaponizing immigration against us, making them slightly above us, while seeking to tether us to the bottom as a permanent underclass and telling us no to reparations, without having any real solutions to close the over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap. Black Magic, thank you for joining the live. He shared that article that I was reading from. I appreciate you being a mod. Thank you. Jeremiah, 500,000. I don't know what that's referencing. Kamala and Obama is connected on their Indian upbringing. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Y'all not going to be satisfied till the immigrants take it over. Then you can really kiss your reparations goodbye. If you can't put these white folks on the hook for it, good luck with the immigrants. They can say all day long that we're owed it. What are they doing about it? Nothing. Jeremiah says they forget that once the Mexico versus America war was over and Mexico conceded and sold the South, the southwest portion of what is now known as America, they became foreigners. Yeah? Blind Focus One says, listen, my grandparents lived in Texas during Jim Crow, the 40s, 50s. Mexicans there were, welcome to the live if I didn't welcome you. Mexicans there were legally considered, considered white and could do everything white people did. This didn't change until after civil rights. Blind focus, it still hasn't changed. They're still in a position to come up for their own people while denying the ADOS. Nothing's different. Look at the census and the way they identify. Nothing's changed. We got a few trinkets that the boomers didn't sustain, allowed our affirmative action to be co-opted by white women first, second to that immigrants, third to that LGBTQIA. Any crumbs that are left, the ADOS, a few of us may benefit from, and then we turn coat and do our oppressors' bidding. Jeremiah says the NAACP and Congressional Black Caucus is done. They're trash. Absolutely. They're catering to who lines their pockets. They're catering to the immigrants that have taken over our communities. Jay Bird, thank you so much for joining the live. Hi, Angela, still with you. Truth. I'm trying not to curse, Jeremiah, but I see you, fam. Truth, it's all about the numbers, Jay Bird. You're right. Herb Saint says Biden DHS pick Alejandro Mayorkas led implementation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program for so-called dreamers who were brought to the United States illegally as children. Anchor babies. I think the DHS is Department Head of Security. Is that it? We're going to unpack all that on Sunday. Y'all don't want to miss that show. It's going to be fire. Pete Burley, welcome to the live, my love. Firefighter, thank you for being here. White people can never say stuff like this. It would be racism. Do you know the definition of racism? That means you've got enough wealth to oppress other groups. There is no part of what I'm saying is racist. It's all based on race. I'm the only one in here. Okay. Oh my God, propaganda. Firefighter, you must be one of them. I don't know who, but no propaganda here. I just read you the article. Is it okay for Gomez to refer to this being a racist country and not me? I'm not defending myself to people who are still asleep. Open up the floodgates is what he basically said, Jeremiah. I'm pissed right alongside you. Thank you, family. Yeah. I'm going to always bring that fire. They don't want to hear it. But the truth shall set ADOS free. I'm not here for these little silly people like this firefighter. I don't really know how to block him. Rodney Young. Oh, I can't believe you're on my live. I had to fire him. He's from Dayton, Ohio. I love him, but he pissed me off. Because he was one of them ones. He probably voted Biden Harris. Get him, y'all. Get him. But I'm glad to see him over here. See? We can't give up. If Rodney is over here. Okay, if Rodney is here, there might be hope for the ADOS movement, okay? Welcome, Rodney. It's good to see you, fam. Okay, I had to go back up. It's an uphill battle from here on out. Taj Marie, welcome to the live. You ain't never lied. We're finished. Harlem to LA. What do you need, family? I need my soldiers, my comrades. Okay? I need you to find a chapter near you. Jay Bird, if you in Harlem, you should be on Tony Blunt's team. Send me an email at friendsofadostv@gmail. friendsofadostv@gmail. Guys, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and like to get the algorithms up, okay? I know y'all might not have money to donate to the show, so at least give me some free marketing. Let the world know the voice of Angela Nirvana and how she rides hard for the ADOS. You guys can share, but I'm telling you, Facebook is bothering me. So I need you guys to have a way to get to me. I'm friends of ADOS TV over there. I'm friends of ADOS TV at Periscope too, okay? So share, like, get the likes up. Even if you're over in Facebook, go to YouTube, subscribe to get my numbers up, and also like it to get the algorithms up. And in that way, more people will be able to see this richness, and we can help other ADOS along this journey to really be a force in 2022 and 2024. Jeremiah says, ever seen a hashtag ADOS working at a taco stand in LA? Neither have I. But I do see Latinos working on soul food joints. Come on, Jeremiah, bring that heat. Not just the Latinos, the Asians too. Go back and watch the top of the show if you're just arriving. When I shared my screen with Juan Gonzalez on Amy Goodman's Democracy Now!, he shows you how all the immigrant numbers went up for the Democrats. So the Asians are in on the act too. They're preparing soul food as well. Jeremiah, hang in there, Angela Nirvana. I'm just as angry as you. I know, baby. I am passionate too, guys. Listen, I am a very spiritually grounded sister, okay? I know how to pray, and you guys know this. I pray a prayer of protection over you. So I might be a cussing Christian because I love my people black and strong. But the way I decompress, I'm telling you, don't worry. The doctors just told me I'm functioning like a 34-year-old. I'm 54, proudly, okay? And so I do things to decompress. I jog on this beautiful ocean. I drink my limeade, my lime water. I have a prayer and meditated life. I laugh as often as I can. So please, family, know that I'm built for this. I can be a drama queen too. That's kind of like how I'm wired. And I'm just thankful that y'all like that brand of crazy over here as I drop truth and speak truth to power. Bell Shuckles, reparations my ass. No, we're pushing for the reparations, and we need all hands on deck. The Latinos might be getting it before us, because we can't even get the collective on reparations and fighting in this fight with us. Hey, Jay Bird says, hey, we need you. Don't be getting high blood pressure. We need you. I was told that my blood and my organs are functioning like I'm 20 years younger. So please, none of that. I know how to have me a key lime pie martini, and I watch a lot of comedy. I know how to keep the stress out of me, honey. And I love God. Okay? That God that rested in me on the seventh day said I was the best of it all, and so are you. Okay? So ain't no thing as high blood pressure. I rebuke that in the name of Black Jesus, okay? Let's see here. And sadly, yes, it is. Taj Marie, Blind Focus says, yes, it is. And sadly, too many of these Negroes don't see it, and they won't until it's too late. Yep. Or until it's happening to them. Love you, period. I love you, Black and Strong. Jeremiah, no, Don Page is the real deal. Yes, she is. Rodney Young, I already welcomed you. Chattel slavery. Chattel. Yep. Wow, that's us. Empire. Thank you, Rodney. Empire was the name of that show where they're pushing the gay agenda on our youth. They put it in the music. They put it in the commercials. They're putting it everywhere in your face and making Blacks the face of that when we're about 1%. Okay? 5% of the entire country is gay and lesbian, and everything is going their way because they got the money. They've robbed the Black man of the money. When you rob the Black man of the money, you put the rest of us to sleep, we're on the menu and not at the table. That's by design of institutional systemic racism. All Obama has is lectures and interference in the elections. Robin Friedrich said they create ghettos, then decide the land is of value and gentrify us right back out of it 20 years later. Yeah. push us on the outer fringes, leaving us an incomeless group with no transportation to get to any jobs in the city. That's what money gets you. York 2700, peace and blessings. Hopes all is well with you and your family. Thank you. It absolutely is. Jeremiah Aaron says, that girl is on fire. Yes, I usually am, family. Tune in. You see me advertised everywhere. Just keep on coming back so I can have somebody to be extra with. P. Burley, I thank you for joining the live. No MSM either, here either. Y'all don't watch this nonsense. I am about that new black media. I'm proud to be amongst them. 13%. Be the power. Tim Black TV, African Diaspora, Dr. Shauna Etienne, Queen Amadaya Shakur, Breaking Brown, Tone Talks. Thank you, Otis. Oh, this is OG. He's up in the chat. He spells chattel, an article of movable personal property, a slave to regard as a chattel, reduced to the condition of a chattel. That's what's up. Thank you, Otis, for defining it. Phoebe Cofield, thank you, my love, for joining the live. Fuji, North Carolina in the building. Peace, fam. ADOS sliding through. I'm always grateful for your presence, Fuji, and all of you. All hands on deck. We are a DEFCON 4 family. I'm with you 100%. Hellface, I don't know what that is. Otis says, have you seen this breaking news? Okay, I dare not open it. It might mess with my feed. Otis says, in Kentucky, a leader of the movement demanding justice for Breonna Taylor has been fatally shot. This is reminiscent of Mike Brown, how they started taking out advocates in the Black Lives Matter movement. 21-year-old Hamza Travis Nagdi was reportedly struck by multiple bullets during a suspected carjacking early Monday near the University of Louisville campus. Police have released few details, have not named a suspect. Nagdi was well known for leading chants over his bullhorn at Black Lives Matter events, demanding that the officers who shot and killed Breonna Taylor in her own home, and it cuts off there. Y'all pray. We're all putting our lives at risk doing this work. When you start to become a threat, these type of things start to happen. Family, be careful. The White Space, thank you for joining the live. Everyone has been eating off of ADOS for damn near 500 years. We are the legs of that table, family. ADOS Houston, I love you, Phoebe. Thank you for being here. Yeah, shout out where you slinging bricks from. I'm almost done, family. Yeah, Frida, you're right. They own soul food restaurants. Absolutely. Yeah, I am passionate. I'm not angry. I'm passionate about the ADOS. You look fabulous right now. I have to admit, I'm a bit turned on right now. Thank you, Jeremiah. You know that black dope. Crack that melanin popping. Hey, with that fire. Ugh, sweaty. I appreciate the love, family. 100% black media is where I get my news from. Me too. Amen. I'm sick of this mess. Me too, Phoebe. Well, family, those are all the comments for now. I'm going to pray us out. You guys are the wind beneath my wings. You're the ones that keep me motivated to keep coming to you with this truth. I can't thank you enough. I have found my tribe. Y'all my family. I love y'all black and strong. Yes, I do. Don't ever forget it. I want you guys to continue to stay in this fight. We can't afford to give in. We can't give up. We can't give out. Our children and our grandchildren are relying on us to push this reparations ball to the finish line in this next best half of our lives. And I'm committed to doing that, and I know you are too. I thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting this show. I love y'all. I can't say enough about having lost so many ADOS friends and gained a brand new family. I am so proud that you are pleased with the way I rep us. I don't give a rip about the ages of chaos in this feed. When you roll with me, know that I appreciate you more than I have the words to convey, that you take time out of your busy day to come over here and get this truth, no matter how bitter a pill it is to swallow. But understand something here, family. We cannot fix what we refuse to face. Know that. Know that. We have to lean in, ADOS. This is our rising. And this information helps us in our local fights and in our national fight. So wherever you are, if you've got love for me, find a chapter near you and get involved. Our very existence depends on it. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, if nobody told you today, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until Sunday, family, when Be the Power will be my co-host. I want you to go out in this world and shine bright like a diamond. This blood that courses through our veins is that of our ancestors. Go out in this world and act like you know who you are and what you've accomplished. Be ADOS proud of that. Say it loud. I'm ADOS proud. You make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening, rest of your week. Happy Thanksgiving. ADOS, we are here. Peace, family.